Venezuela, the electoral silence is in place after the candidates close their campaigns ahead of the presidential elections of next July 28th. On Friday, Cubans commemorate the 71st anniversary of the assault on the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Céspedes barracks, also known as the Day of National Rebellion. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, the electoral ban came into force ahead of the July 28th elections, marking the closing of the presidential candidates' campaigns. In this context, authorities of the Ministry of Defense and Interior Relations, Justice and Peace established a series of mandatory measures for compliance with the electoral exercise. The actions to be held starting on Friday include a dry law and the prohibition of carrying weapons, as well as celebrating political acts and gatherings, all implemented with the purpose of protecting the citizens. For their part, the National Electoral Council began the process to install the polling stations in 30,000 voting centers set up throughout the national territory. The National Electoral Council of Venezuela held a formal installation ceremony at the International Press Center of the National and International Monitoring Plan for the 2024 presidential election. During the meeting, the president of the National Electoral Council, Elvis Amoroso, highlighted the importance of the international observers for the presidential elections of next July 28th. Likewise, Amoroso acknowledged the work of the international and national experts after accompanying the different audits of the electoral system in the phases prior to the event. The installation ceremony also included the participation of the former president of the Dominican Republic, Leonel Fernández, and the former president of Colombia, Ernesto Samper. In this context, Venezuelan authorities led a meeting with international accompaniers ahead of the 2024 presidential elections. More than 800 guests from more than 100 countries were present at the International Convention Center in La Carlota, Caracas. The meeting began with diverse cultural and musical activities, gastronomic samples, and Venezuelan economic events. In this sense, the first vice president of the Socialist Party United for Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, pointed out that the presence of the international accompaniers will guarantee the authentic account of the presidential elections.
In all the electoral processes prior to this one, the world has also been worried about what is going to happen in Venezuela. Some give their prophecy and almost always roll with that prophecy. They talk about violence, they talk about fraud, they talk about low participation. Each one makes their own story. The truth is that thanks to you who are here in the presence, you will have firsthand the authentic story of what is going to happen in Venezuela.
Spanish journalist Ignacio Ramonet explained that the national dialogue called by President Nicolás Maduro on July 29th is a constitutional project with the people to carry out the future economic agreements and make peace without exclusivity.
Now it can be confirmed, the president has information that we do not have, about what the opposition is preparing, whose violent coup trajectory we have known for many years. The second observation is what he has announced for the 29th, the day after what is supposed to be his victory, the victory of the president. He is calling for a great national dialogue without exclusives. It is also a way of saying that this has been a rhetorical battle. Obviously it is an electoral campaign, there have been rhetorical confrontations, there have been differences, but the next day there will be national unification, national pacification. And there is a project that is a national project, there will be no foreign interference, he said, it is a national project, among Venezuelans, we are going to agree on which economic project, which cultural project, which social project, all kinds of projects, which ones we are going to have, among ourselves. It is almost, I would say, almost a constitutional project, but in a different way, together with the people.
Analyst Franco Vielma, member of the Mission Verdad team, affirmed that the Venezuelan electoral system has been the main point of attack by the Western powers to make the world believe that the country's democracy is weak in electoral aspects.
If something has been unfairly attacked in Latin America, it is the Venezuelan electoral system. Sadly, the main attacks have come from the Venezuelan opposition. We know that because of their agenda to create tension and sometimes destabilization, they need to attack the Venezuelan electoral system in order not to recognize their political failures in the elections where they have participated. But besides that, we know that the process of delegitimizing the Venezuelan institutions is one of the transversal processes that the Latin American far right has. It is a way to destroy or try to destroy, at least narratively, the Venezuelan process, due to its political particularities. That is to say, Venezuela has a system of parties and open elections, a system of direct and secret universal election where the parties and organizations and political actors participate in an open competitive field. To speak of a country that has a revolution but also has some characteristics of an electoral system similar to those of the liberal world, well, that has to be the target of attack, that is to say, to declare that Venezuelan democracy is weak in the electoral field.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Cuba celebrates the Day of National Rebellion, which commemorates the assault on the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Céspedes barracks 71 years ago. From Santi Espíritus, Fabiola Lopez gives us more details.
Hello, how are you? A pleasure to greet you from the central province of Sancti Espíritus, about 350 kilometers from Havana. Indeed, July 26th are very special days for Cubans. Precisely on this day when 71 years of the assaults on the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Céspedes barracks are commemorated, President Miguel Díaz-Canel, in his profile on the social network X, congratulated the population of the central province of Sancti Espíritus, which has been the deserving host of the Central Act for the National Rebellion Day. In his X account, the president highlighted the nobility and industriousness of the people of Espiritu and said that together with Raúl and other heroes of the centenary generation, the most joyful dawn of the year was experienced this Friday in Sancti Espíritus. Precisely, Army General Raúl Castro and President Miguel Díaz-Canel led here in Sancti Espíritus the Central Act for the National Rebellion Day. The event took place at the Major General Serafin Sanchez Revolution Square and was attended by some 5,000 people from Sancti Espíritus representing all Cubans. At the end of the celebration, which combined culture, art, history, and a lot of commitment, Cuban Vice President Salvador Valdez Mesa expressed the country's will to face the economic challenges and promote its independent development. Delivering the central words of the activity, Salvador Valdez Mesa reaffirmed the will to defend the Cuban Revolution in the face of the aggressiveness of the United States. During the commemoration, he spoke of the need for unity, relevance, creative resistance, of not standing idly by waiting for the blockade to be lifted, and of the need to correct distortions in order to give new impetus to the economy. This year, together with the people of Sancti Espíritus, around 140 friends of Cuba from more than 24 countries participated in the celebration, including a delegation from Vietnam, as well as members of the European José Martí Brigade of Volunteer Work and Solidarity with Cuba, the Juan Rios Rivera Brigade from Puerto Rico, a delegation of Cuban Americans from the José Martí Cultural Society, an Afro-American group of solidarity with the island, and foreign students recently graduated from the University of Medical Sciences here in this city. This is the third time that the Moncada commemoration ceremony is held in the land of Major General Serafin Sanchez, who is a hero of the 3 wars of independence of this country, a friend of José Martí.
On Thursday in the United States, the Vice President of the nation, Kamala Harris, after a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, stressed that there is a hopeful movement to achieve a peace agreement in Gaza.
So I just had a frank and constructive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. I told him that I will always ensure that Israel is able to defend itself, including from Iran and Iran-backed militias such as Hamas and Hezbollah. Let us all do what we can to prevent the suffering of innocent civilians, and let us condemn anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate of any kind. And let us work to unite our country. I thank you.
Meanwhile, demonstrators in the United States gathered near the White House to reject the compromise between Joe Biden's government and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and demand an end to the Israeli occupation army's genocide war against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. It is worth noting that mobilizations nationwide reject the Israeli Prime Minister's visit to the United States, in addition to demand the arrest of Netanyahu for committing war crimes while denouncing the U.S. government's supply of arms to the Tel Aviv regime. In Palestine, displaced citizens in central Gaza Strip expressed anger and surprise on Thursday over Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech to the U.S. Congress, where he used the high-profile address to emphasize long-standing and close ties between the United States and Israel.
Interviewed civilians in Palestine said that they were expecting Netanyahu to declare a ceasefire, but on the contrary, he vowed to continue the war in the Gaza Strip, stating his willingness to achieve total victory against Hamas.
He did not mention ceasefire or anything. He wants to continue with what he's doing to kill and destroy the Palestinian people. He wants to wipe out resistance, but he cannot do that, so he's wiping out the Palestinian people.
Citizens also expected a truce to be achieved, but Netanyahu has been avoiding it, claiming he will have victory all over Gaza.
Regarding Netanyahu's speech, we were expecting that there will be a truce. This is our only hope during this period, but we were severely shocked. He used to bombard civilians and he used to bombard pregnant women. He used to demolish homes on the heads of their inhabitants, the shells and missiles that he hits us with, as if they are hitting mountains and rocks and not human beings.
Netanyahu's visits to the United States have been severely criticized by Israeli citizens, Palestinian citizens, and even citizens in the United States, where several activists were detained for staging a protest in the capital.
On Friday, in Palestine, the Ministry of Health in Gaza reported that the death toll reached 39,000 martyrs in 294 days of Israeli genocide. In this regard, they also denounced that during the last 24 hours, the people of Gaza were victims of new attacks in civilian areas in several regions of the Strip, while the search and rescue teams continue to recover bodies from under the rubble and attend to the wounded. For his part, the Gaza Health Ministry also confirmed that in addition to the 39,175 killed by the Tel Aviv regime, the number of wounded reached 90,403 people. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, the forest fire in the Butte County forest in Northern California tripled in magnitude, destroying more than 250 miles of forest. Investigations by local authorities revealed that a man pushed his car down a cliff in Bidwell Park, causing the flames to spread and increasing the damage to the area. They also assured that the subject was arrested without the right to bail until the formal accusation hearing is scheduled for July 29th. In the meantime, the evacuation of 4,000 residents near the areas affected by the fire was ordered, while the fire department continues working to put out the fire. More than 20 people died in Morocco during the last 24 hours due to the extreme heat wave that has hit the country. The General Meteorological Department predicted the increase in temperatures in several regions of the North African country, which could exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Authorities said that most of the dead were elderly or suffering from chronic diseases. They also urged citizens to stay hydrated and avoid going outdoors. The rising temperatures and prolonged drought have lowered reservoir levels, threatening the vital farming sector. It has previously predicted that daily records would be broken this summer in the Northern Hemisphere as a result of climate change. In Mongolia, herders and local non-governmental ECOSOM urge companies and the population to combat plastic pollution. A current global predicament, the annual production of plastic worldwide is 460 million tons, and by 2064, the figure is expected to triple if governments don't take measures to curb it. Since 2018, local non-governmental organization ECOSOM has arranged a top recycling facility to encourage citizens to bring local waste to the entity for processing. However, a nearby field in the Kishik Undur district is polluted with a mountain of plastic waste just a few meters away from where the horses graze. In this context, a herder and a non-governmental organization coordinator shared their views on the matter. On Thursday, during a speech in the framework of the first anniversary in power of the current Niger administration, the country's military chief, General Abdou Ramhamane Tiani, stated that the nation is marching towards full sovereignty.
No state, no interstate organization will dictate to us how to behave, nor its agenda in terms of strategic or diplomatic partnerships. And those who fantasize about the imminent return to power of regimes that have fallen under their sway are in for a rude awakening. Before it's too late, they'll have to face the facts. Our march towards full sovereignty is inexorable.
On Friday, France suffered a massive attack on its high-speed rail network just hours before the start of the Olympic Games. In this regard, the National Association of French Railways warned that the disruption will have a serious impact on all travelers in the country, as local authorities reported that the heart of the network was hit and pointed out that in particular the connections between Paris and the western, northern and eastern regions will be affected. As a consequence, the French railway company is out of air and reportedly working against the clock to restore service as soon as possible and ensure the safety of passengers.
A new transport and traffic plan will be presented early this afternoon. The National Association of French Railways is committed to communicating with passengers directly, in a targeted way, about the new solutions and alternatives that will be offered to them, and everyone is on deck for this. The investigation is starting. I call on everyone to be cautious. What we know, what we can see, is that this operation was prepared, coordinated, that sensitive points were targeted, which shows some form of knowledge of the network to know where to strike.
Who never, ever fails to deliver.
Thousands of Olympic competitors cruised down the River Seine in a spectacular opening ceremony for the Paris Games on Friday that celebrated French history and culture to the delight of a crowd undeterred by persistent rain. For the first time in Olympic history, the opening ceremony took place outside the main stadium with up to 7,000 athletes parading down the Seine past the historic monuments of the French capital. In an ambitious, high-risk departure from past opening ceremonies, the athletes sailed in an armada of 85 boats instead of making the traditional walk around and running tracks. Some 300,000 people watched in person from specially built stands on the riverbanks, and another 200,000 from overlooking balconies and apartments. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.